Thank you, Brittany, and good afternoon, and welcome to the Voices from the Field panel. My name is Dr. Eiley Malm, and I am a professor at California State University, Long Beach, and I've been working as a subject matter expert for the body-worn camera TTA for about 4 years now. And I'm lucky enough to be able to moderate this session for you, which is one of my favorite sessions of our national meeting. I'm going to be asking each of the representatives here. We have representatives from 2 different police departments, from the Cookeville, Tennessee department and from Tampa, Florida, a series of questions. But before I start that, I'd like everyone to introduce themselves. So if I perhaps could have, let's start with Tampa. If I could have the representatives from Tampa introduce themselves, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Schoolmeesters. I'm a captain with obviously with Tampa and the commander of our Professional Standards Bureau, which also oversees our body-worn camera program.
Hi, I'm Senior Corporal Sonia Wise. I'm the Quality Assurance / Body-Worn Camera Unit Manager.
And my name is Chris Stockton. I am the body-worn camera analyst for Tampa Police.
Thank you so much. And now if I can have the representatives from Cookeville introduce themselves, please.
I'm Major Ken Searcy, and I'm the Support Services Bureau Commander and Accreditation Commander.
Major Scott Winfrey. I'm the Major over the Uniform Services Bureau.
Wonderful. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for being with us here today. So if I can get each of our agencies to provide a brief description of your agency and your body-worn camera program, including when you first deployed your cameras and the current status of your program. And let's start with Cookeville.
Okay. So we've had body-worn cameras since February of 2015. And ultimately, we had entered into this grant as a way to extend our program and look to change vendors, because unfortunately, when we had first went into the body-worn camera business, we had used a previous vendor that we'd had been satisfied with as far as in-car systems. But this was a new system they had just developed that would incorporate both body-worn and dash cams, and really didn't work out as well as it had intended. But at that same time, we also did on-site storage. And all of these things, the lack of reliability, the difficulty of maintaining on-site storage, definitely factored into how we evaluated the current system we have.
All right, thank you so much. If I can get Tampa to just provide a brief description of the agency and your body-worn camera program, please.
How you doing? City of Tampa, we have about 1,000 police officers, and we first initially started our body-worn camera back in late 2015 with the older systems. We deployed about 70, and just to have a brief study. And then again in 2020, we moved to add additional cameras to outfit 650 officers with the newer version of our camera system. And then now we're looking to expand it to 702 officers, and then also integrating our DUI units as well into the same body camera system that we are currently at.
Great, thank you so much. My first question of the panel is going to go to Tampa. And you have an issue, or you had an issue that's very common to a lot of our grantees and to all the police departments across the country that are implementing body-worn camera programs. And that at first, some of your officers were a bit reluctant to wear the cameras. How did you eventually achieve officer buy-in?
Well, initially, like I said, we've had the body-worn cameras here in our agency back till late 2015. The more senior officers were a little more hesitant. The younger officers, they're used to technology and that's part of their job. But what we also did as well is, prior to rolling them out, we brought in the sergeants and the lieutenants, explained them, let them look at the cameras, ask questions, and also and took their input on our policy. We crafted our original policy when we first implemented it in 2015, but it's obviously gone under several edits since then. But we brought in also the union as well, with so they can give their input, and which helped out greatly. But I think also another big thing was time as well. So the officers got to digest that they're getting the cameras. It wasn't like sprung on them overnight. So they knew, so they obviously could there's no better word, gripe about them. And then, but it's settled in, and the vendor helped. They gave several suggestions to us that, you know, within a year, most officers won't want to go out on the street without a body-worn camera. And then two, then they put in, you know, to ask for that input. So the officers and the supervisors had a buy-in for our system.
Great. Senior Corporal Wise or Chris, did you want to add anything to that answer?
You know, like the captain said, it was just a process for the buy-in, but eventually it worked. So that, yeah, that's how we did it.
I'd like to add just a few things that occurred. Like I said, that initially there was some apprehension, but as the officers began to utilize this tool, the body-worn camera, they saw how useful and resourceful it was, and they found that it was a tool that helped them in their job. And my experience has been through internal affairs in dealing with complaints. We were able to, officers were able to see how quickly complaints could be resolved. Also in internal affairs, we participate in a community review board where there was an outcry of, like it is across the nation, for body-worn cameras. And we were able to work with the Citizen Review Board. And when we would bring forth cases, we'd have the opportunity, if body-worn camera was available, for it to be part of our transparency and our accountability. And so what we found is that the officers, just as Axon told us, that after a while, the officers would not want to go out on the streets without those cameras. And they were basically, if they had any issue with the camera, they wanted to make sure that it was resolved so that they could have that piece of equipment, like we talk about, our tools on our tool belt. The body-worn camera is also a tool on our tool belt.
Thank you so much. Some excellent advice there.
I'd like to add that a lot of the concerns that I saw during rollout were officers were concerned about their privacy. And, you know, the new technology, there's GPS and the ability to remote in. During our training, we would actually demonstrate the capabilities of the privacy, such as, you know, this is what happens when a supervisor logs into your camera. And this is what happens when you're not recording and they try to log in. And they saw that, you know, they weren't able to log in if they weren't recording, just like we had told them. So yeah, I think showing them the limitations and capabilities really helped the buy-in with the officers. I think that's one of their main concerns, was their privacy.
You know, it's very common. We hear it again, site after site after site. So thank you very much. My next question goes to Cookeville. So as Major Searcy mentioned, after having cameras deployed for a number of years, those cameras started to fail. And there was some issues with the in-car systems as well. And your agency decided it was time to swap out for a new set of cameras. How did Cookeville decide which cameras to purchase the second time around?
Well, having this experience where we had a system that was just so unreliable, we would have multiple officers on a scene collecting both body-worn camera and in-car camera footage. And we were happy just to cobble together enough to prove a case or keep things going because the system was just so bug-ridden. It had so many different automatic triggers and tried to integrate the activation of the body camera with the in-car system. So that reliability weighed heavy on us. So we had two information technology systems managers at the time that were very educated guys. They managed then to look at virtually every body-worn camera system out there that offered proprietary video that could, you know, have quality that could actually be admitted into evidence in court. There are and have been several number of smaller vendors that offered video that was much easier compromised and brought into question if it was entered into evidence. So among these different vendors, they spent something like a year looking at every possible variation out there, soliciting test models. The vendors, for the most part, were definitely all the big name vendors were very good about providing test cameras and getting them set up with temporary accounts to field them and see how well the officers liked them. And ultimately, this evaluation process was provided to our state chiefs association, just to give them guidance and let them know what they found over this long study period. We were looking to keep that the legacy system going as long as we could. The vendor was, I do believe, trying everything they could to make it work. And really, that was just a matter of getting the value out of the money we'd spent on that system. But part of the evaluation process looked not only at reliability and ease of use, but then we definitely compared the advantages and disadvantage of on-site storage versus cloud-based. And these two guys had the capability to do all the on-site storage, and we spent a lot of money buying storinators and multi-terabyte servers, and then trying to have secondary off-site storage. One time, the air conditioning there in the computer room was failing. It didn't go all the way out, thank goodness. It just wasn't putting out enough. We had to call a local service provider for that, who brought in portable machines to keep the room cool enough over the weekend. All of those things are just not issues with cloud-based storage. And so it ended up weighing pretty heavily on our choice of the current vendor.
Major Winfrey, is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, one of the benefits of the cloud-based storage is being able to share that video with either a district attorney or a defense attorney, even our city attorney, who up to this point, he was a really strong advocate for cloud-based storage, and that has helped us a lot.
Thank you so much. I'm going to come back to Cookeville now for my next question. I hear you've done some really novel things with community engagement, and community engagement is on the tip of everyone's tongue right now. It's a real buzzword in the policing field or area of policing. Can you tell me a bit about what you've done, especially the college course that I've heard about? And also, Jessica was telling me there's a body-worn camera video of a zebra that I have to find out about.
Naturally, the zebra is going to come up. Ultimately, what's happened with the college course, obviously we've had several years of a lot of social unrest, and divisive race relations have been at the heart of it. And so Chief Randy Evans was the one to come up with the idea to try and employ a class like the Citizens Academy, or that Citizens Academy format, wherein you have a series of topics. You promote interaction with those people going through a Citizens Academy. Take that format and put it into a college class. And ultimately, through cooperation of one particular student athlete and ultimately the athletic department and the Department of Education at the local university, we actually put that class on this last semester and completed it. So the class was made up of student athletes that, by definition, were going to be diverse backgrounds totally from our own population. I think everyone in the class was from somewhere else, some other part of the country. One kid was even from Toronto, Canada. But what it did, hopefully, it gave those students a chance to have a different viewpoint, a better understanding of law enforcement, and it gave the officers participating a chance to understand some of these young people's different experiences coming from a lot of major metropolitan areas around the country. One of the things the chief did right off the bat, one of the early classes, used a series of body-worn camera and security footage in combination with a Twitter post this young lady had done. Showed this to the students with the whole point of letting them make their own decision about how truthful her post was, which it was not. And that was just to promote the idea of students, making choices for themselves and not buying into any one narrative or any one social media post, because there's just so many people with an axe to grind, and it's easy to be swayed by that stuff. So the class has been really good. I think it's been great. We're on the docket's what I always will call it, but we're on the schedule to do the class here again in the fall. And so I would expect it to be just as successful there. Ultimately, we've got a stockyard here nearby. I knew they sold horses. I didn't realize they also sold exotic animals from time to time. And apparently one of the animals they periodically sell would be zebras. So this little half-grown zebra got away from them. And then our third shift spent the night trying to corral them, which resulted in varying degrees of funny videos. They even tried to tase it at some point, which I don't know where that was going, but it was just any good faith effort, obviously, to keep the poor animal alive. Ultimately, that morning they were able to corner it in, and there's some pretty good video where the officers putting their hand out to the little zebra and smacking it on the rear end to get it to go into the horse trailer.
That's a fabulous story. Major Winfried, is there anything you'd like to add?
Uh,
Not necessarily about the zebra, but anything you'd like to add about the question?
Well, the zebra, if anybody wants to watch it, they can look up Cookeville Police Department zebra and it pops up on YouTube. Ken pretty much covered it. As far as the course, I would say it benefited us and our officers as much as it probably benefited the students. And they were very open to what we were presenting, and it was a very good interaction between our officers, us, and the students.
Well, kudos to you and to the department just for being so innovative in this area that, like I said, is a real burgeoning area of policing. So I'm going to ask the same-ish question to Tampa. You've used body-worn camera videos to engage your community. Could you tell me a bit about what you've done? And not to be outdone, I hear you guys have a video of a guinea pig.
Yes, we do. And I'll let Chris Stockton talk about that because he's also on the star of that video. But what we've done is with the platform that we use, we have officers that are allowed to tag their cameras. And what that does is that sends that to our public information officer, and they review those daily to show the good things that we do every day that the public doesn't see. Just recently we released one where we had 2 officers responding to a toddler who was choking. It was all caught on body-worn camera. They're able to dislodge the object, get the toddler to breathe again. So we're trying to, the public information officer, just, showing everybody the good stuff that we do. And of course, everybody, and as the previous agency spoke about, loves an animal story. And I'll let Chris take it away with regards to the video.
All right. So it's like day 2 of FTO for me here at Tampa Police. And we're actually searching for a missing endangered person. And we're going through the park, and I see a homeless guy like throwing his jacket on the ground. He's clearly trying to catch something. So he comes up to us and he's like, "I'm trying to catch a hamster." I'm like, okay, so I guess this is going to be Tampa PD, right? So get out, and it's a guinea pig. And I use my guinea pig wrangling skills that I learned in the academy to catch this little guinea pig that had been dumped off at the park. So yeah, that's my fame here at Tampa Police.
Well, that's a good thing to be famous for. Senior Corporal Weiss, is there anything you'd like to add about your community engagement, the way you've used body-worn camera footage to enhance that?
I believe the captain has pretty much covered our usage, but yes, I don't have anything to add.
All right, and I won't ask you about any animal stories that you've got either. All right, I'm going to direct my next question to both of our departments, but we'll start with Cookeville. What are 1 or 2 primary elements that have helped your agency sustain a successful body-worn camera program?
Well, to me, I think that the 2 most important things were firstly the support of the city council and the city administration for the whole concept of body-worn cameras. When this was a new thing, at least for our area, they quickly wanted us to see us take advantage of that and were willing to help fund that. So that's the reason that when we got into the program and actually put it all out there in 2015, the first part of it, virtually all uniformed officers in patrol and traffic were provided these cameras. We jumped in at a time when really there was a lot of conflicting case law Nationally, when you looked at the ACLU, would be on both sides of different cases about right to privacy for individuals, and likewise within our own Public Record Act in our state, it didn't offer us a lot of support, and so you saw many agencies turning cameras off and on and all these things, and we just had to make a stand policy-wise about how we could best deploy these things. And so ultimately, we made the decision to pretty much keep cameras on anytime our officers are in contact with anybody, and that we would just protect that video and protect that right to privacy of the individual like we do so many other documents in our care. Unfortunately, the Public Record Act really didn't back that up. It has since, the state law has changed a couple of times now to help foster that kind of protection, thank goodness. But that support has been critical for us early on, and I think also the support for the accreditation program. We are both accredited internationally and through the state, and the accreditation then provides a commitment, community policing, and a commitment to review of our procedures and policy. And so it just helps keep things transparent and under a state of constant improvement, we hope.
Thank you. Major Winfrey, is there anything you'd like to add about some things that have helped your agency sustain a good body-worn camera program?
Well, kind of to elaborate, and it's like Tampa's also said, and what you've seen throughout the country, is that once a department goes to body-worn cameras, the officers, there's so much buy-in that they don't want to, be exposed to anything negative. So they want to make sure they have their body-worn cameras on them and that they're functioning properly. So you get that support from the officers as well.
Excellent point. All right, I'm going to ask the same question of Tampa. Can you give us some tips on what has really helped you sustain a successful program?
Well, what has helped us greatly is to repeat what Cookeville says well about the administration. Mayor Jane Castor has been a full supporter of this, and then so is Chief Brian Dugan. Everybody can attest, these things can be pretty expensive, and they are always open for us, to expand it. They always listen, and they haven't said no in anything. And they also gave us the flexibility on how for us to roll this out with the officers, which was a big thing. And again, the buy-in from the officers. Like, I'm over internal affairs as well, and to repeat the major from Cooksville is that we hammer it into them is we clear so many complaints that come into our office through these body-worn cameras, and we reinforce those to the officers any chance we get where we have to speak in front of them or in roll call or whatnot. And and then now the vendor was right. They're afraid to go out on the street without one now.
I'd like to add, as the captain stated, we did have major buy-in from our mayor, the city council, our chief of police, but a couple of things that helped our program be successful was a strong team that we built from the procurement stage all the way through the actual deployment, training, the management of our body-worn camera unit. The quality assurance / body-worn camera unit is housed under the Professional Standards Bureau, which contains a quality assurance, accreditation, and an internal affairs component. So I believe all of those different areas help solidify what we're trying to do with the body-worn camera unit. When we talk about, when we put our body-worn camera unit together, this group has stayed together from the inception all the way to now. We were very fortunate that we were able to hire our own body-worn camera analyst. We knew exactly what we were looking for. We started out with a very strong policy, exactly what our policy was going to be. And then as we moved along and where those changes needed to be made, the chief was agreeable to making those changes so that we would be successful. And so we work hand in hand. Our body-worn camera unit works hand in hand with our quality assurance unit so that officers know exactly what is expected of them. We're able to monitor their progress. We're able to spot check and produce reports, executive reports to the chief to let him know what is going on. And there is feedback given on a monthly basis.
Excellent. Officer Stockton, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yes, I would say one of the aspects that helped us out the most was we had a really good deployment plan prior to actually getting the cameras. We started, as soon as we got hired, we started a plan for deployment, and we knew it was going to be a big task, with 700 plus cameras. So we just got that plan rolling months before we even received a piece of equipment. We already had our plan down, and then we even had to change our plan because of COVID. We had to make some big adjustments to our training, but we just came together as a unit, and we just did it, and we did really well at it. And I think that having a BWC, a dedicated unit for the body-worn camera, gives that officers the peace of mind that we're here for them. I get called all day long, get emails about just simple issues that officers are having, and I feel like that's really helpful to them because they're already busy, as it is. Why do they, have to wait longer for help? And I just enjoy being that help for them. So I think a strong BWC unit is very, very helpful.
I couldn't agree more. So staying with Tampa now, I'm going to go to my next question. Is there anything you'd do differently? You've told us a lot about what you thought went really well. Is there anything that looking back you would have changed?
Thinking about it, not really. We were tasked with this project. I thought there'd be a lot more pushback, a lot more issues. But, like Corporal Wise was talking about, we had a good team in place. We had a good plan. We rolled it out. I'm originally from Detroit, and whenever they roll out a new car, it's not the car, it's the rollout that's key to the success. And our rollout went very, very well.
Great. Corporal Wise, Officer Stockton, anything to add?
No, I agree with the captain. I wouldn't change a thing.
I concur.
All right. So moving to Cookeville, did you guys have a similarly sunny time with your body-worn camera program? Was there anything that you would have done differently?
Well, whenever I was looking at this question, similarly, I had to say not really, because the decisions made at the time to go with that system, it was earlier in the technology options out there, and it was based upon previously successful experience with that vendor, and at least 2 previous versions of digital in-car cameras. And even though it was fraught with all manner of problems, and it was really just too many advanced technologies that were unproven put together, it did then really have a big influence on where we went with the new system. And so we knew that ease of use and absolute reliability was just key. And likewise, it really did show us that even though the cost of cloud-based storage may seem high, you have so many ancillary costs involved in on-site storage, and likewise capabilities that most agencies really just don't have. It really steered us toward the current system. So may have been a somewhat painful education, but it definitely helped us move forward.
Absolutely. Staying with you, Major Searcy, are you still facing any challenges with your body-worn camera program? Is there a next phase for your program? And if so, can you tell us what you're planning in the next phase?
Sure. So, we've got some little issues. We have some of the automatic triggering systems that are part of the BWC system. We're wanting to get it to work better, like triggers fixed on the holsters and associated with the conducted energy weapons. But those are kind of minor. The big thing probably that's our next step is we've bought a software package that would offer us an analytic quality assurance program. It will be a cloud-based service, but it will give us a way to guide the supervisor's compliance checks, document those things, and then actually provide analysis of that so that we can have a true audit trail and an audit system. That's just something we've never really had. We've always had in policy that supervisors will randomly view videos, but then this will allow us to tailor the different kinds of videos used, where it gives guidance to that supervisor, the kinds of things they may want to look for, whether it's for policy compliance or just officer safety issues. So that's the next big thing. We've just now got this thing loaded on the server, so we'll see how well it all works.
Great, thank you, Major Searcy. And to Tampa, are you still facing challenges with your program, or is there a next phase that you'd like to tell us about?
Well, probably like most agencies, now that we have all this digital evidence, is we're trying to combine and create a program, or our vendor has a program to move all our digital evidence from our forensic unit, the photographs, the detectives. Because I'm sure we're like many agencies, there's many spots to go for information. So we're trying to, concentrate that into one area. So, but, department of our size, we're fortunate to have a TNI department that assists us greatly. And they are a big help, not only in this and doing this project, but also, implementing and rolling out the body-worn cameras. And also we're expanding. Initially, we received 650 cameras, and then we expanded to 702. And like I said earlier, then our DUI units had different camera systems. So they were, being asked to operate 2 systems at once. So we were able to get the funding to put in our vendors that supply the body-worn cameras, their camera equipment into the vehicles. And we're constantly looking to expand it, because right now, currently, all our corporals and officers have them, and we're maybe looking to expand that to maybe the sergeants and lieutenants.
Thank you. Corporal Weiser, Officer Stockton.
I don't have anything further.
Neither do I.
Okay. All right. We're going to turn to some questions from the audience now, from the other grantees. And the first question that came through is, how did your agencies involve the community in program implementation? So did you hold community forums? Did you have a community advisory committee? Some of you have mentioned this already, but if you can just elaborate on how the community was involved in your body-worn camera program, both at early stages and maybe currently.
I could speak for Tampa. As we have a citizen review board. They were a part of the process. And also speaking to what Cookville earlier, we've had a Citizens Academy for several years. So we roll community leaders, we put them through the academy and just let them walk in the footsteps of an officer for several hours, run through some different scenarios. And we took input from them as well. And they got to see the cameras in operation.
I've been through the Long Beach PD's Citizen Police Academy, and it was so helpful. I'm part of the Citizen Advisory Committee, and it's just I think it's a phenomenal thing for city leaders and community leaders to do this. And particularly when they engage with the body-worn cameras, like putting a camera on, seeing the kind of footage that is collected, it's very, very helpful.
Yes, it changes a lot of minds of the people who go through it.
Yeah, agreed. Anyone else want to add how the community, maybe from Cookville, Major Searcy, how the community was involved in your body-worn camera program?
Well, ultimately for us, of course, we're a smaller agency, a smaller community. We're allotted 74 sworn officers. Our population for our city is around 33,000 as far as the resident population, not counting the university. And so ultimately we had a long history of in-car cameras. Whenever the council had first heard about the body-worn camera system, which would have been at that time around the 2014 time period, they were immediately smitten with the idea. Likewise, we always had good experience within the department of cameras catching officers doing something right and exonerating them in many little rudeness complaints and similar things like that. So it was a pretty easy sell. We didn't really have to make a pretty concerted effort. Our community was pretty happy with the idea of being that transparent.
Great, thank you. We have an excellent question here from another audience member. Did your agencies hire additional staff to implement your body-worn camera program? And we've heard a little bit about this, especially from Tampa, and what is the staffing like for these programs in each of your agencies?
So I'll go first. Yes, we did. We hired 2 civilian employees. Chris Stockton's one of them for the body-worn camera analyst. And also we have a platform where the public can do public records requests. And we had to hire a person to operate that as well, who was Kadeem White. So those were the 2. and and then they share this similar duties of one's off and to fill in and whatnot. But we did create a separate unit. Professional Standards Bureau used to be just internal affairs, but then it was expanded to include the body worn camera unit, our quality assurance, and our accreditation as well. So we have 2 detectives, corporal wise, and then the 2 civilians of 5 to carry this out. We were a little worried because of the state attorney requests and whatnot, and the public records requests that we might be overwhelmed. So we started with them, and it's actually that Chris does a great job, and so does Kadeem, of keeping up with the workload. So that's what we've done here.
And ultimately for our agency, again, everything's a matter of scale. So we really didn't add any extra employees for it. The 2 information technology people we had at the time managed the program as they already were with the in-car system and the electronic report management system and things like that. Supervisors would help with uploading video, that would have an evidentiary nature. At the time, the district attorney's office had their own proprietary program that they were wanting the video uploaded to, but we didn't end up adding any extra personnel.
Thank you. And it is always a question of scale, isn't it? I've worked with, small, tiny police departments and all the way up to the LAPD, and it's same issues, just different scale. Another really good question, and very timely. Do your agencies perform audits of body-worn camera footage? And if so, what do you look for, and how often are these audits performed?
Well, I'll speak for Tampa as well, which Corporal Wise is over, is our quality assurance. Right now, we mandate, as far as the sergeant of the squad, originally it was 3 checks per officer a month. In our squads here, average size of 10, so 30 checks. Since then, we have scaled it down to just 1 check per officer that the sergeant has to perform. But in addition, our quality assurance unit also does spot checks. They go into the system and we review, I believe it's 5% of the body-worn camera footage to watch. And speaking from experience, those work well, because sometimes we've caught things that probably would have slipped through the cracks if nobody was checking the videos. So that's been, very effective for us to do that.
Major Cersei, Major Winfrey, do you conduct any audits?
Yes, currently we have a sergeant review each of those officers that they're responsible for at least 2 videos per month. And then, of course, any use of force that comes across, the sergeant will review it. It will be forwarded to the lieutenant. They will review it. And then the captain over that division will also review it.
Great, thank you so much.
Add for Tampa as well, it just, we do also, at a certain level of use of force, the sergeant has to review it. And of course, any complaints that the sergeant receives, they have to review that as well, in addition to the 1 check per month. And we also we produce a quality assurance report once a month that goes to the chief. And that's one of the 14 categories that we review, is the body-worn cameras.
Great. And just a reminder to our audience, if you have any questions for Cookeville or Tampa, please just put them in the chat and hopefully we'll have a chance to ask them. I have another question here. Could you tell us a bit about how your agencies are interacting with your prosecutors' offices? Have there been hiccups along the way, or has it been fairly smooth?
With Tampa, they share the same platform. We don't give them, they don't have open access to our body-worn cameras. What we do is we have a system in place twice a week. Any cases that are cleared by arrest by the sergeant, whether it's an investigative sergeant or the patrol sergeant, we do a dump twice a week and we send it to them. And if they obviously, if there's anything that's been missed or they need more research, then they call over and we help them look for that, and then we push it to them.
Our district attorney's office also has we can provide them with a link to review any videos. But they also want certain cases to be uploaded to a software program, a report management system of theirs, so they can download it and put it in their report management.
Great, thank you. I live in the world of research, and there, as was mentioned earlier today by Dr. White, the research has been mixed on body-worn cameras. Some research has said it's made big differences, especially in the area of complaints and to a certain extent in use of force. But there's also been other benefits. Other research has said there hasn't been much difference when we actually look at how the body-worn cameras have affected complaints, use of force, and some other outcomes. Looking back at your body-worn camera program and your officers having cameras, do you think, and you've already mentioned a lot of the positives here, but do you see your body-worn camera program as being an overall net positive? Do you believe that it has made significant differences in some of the outcomes that we've mentioned earlier? Or do you feel that your officers were, that the cameras are a nice addition, but they really haven't made too much of a difference with some of these outcomes that we're hoping body-worn cameras to have?
Like it was for Tampa, I think it's too early yet to judge that. We've only all the officers have only had them for 9 months. So, but we're definitely going to do a circle back around and then after 1 year and see if our use of force complaints have dropped or our citizens' complaints have dropped. But I can say, being over internal affairs, they do help not only us, but the supervisors clear up a lot of complaints when they come in, because obviously, we explain to them it's on body-worn camera. The detectives look at the body-worn camera, and then we can close a lot of complaints. So I think, so far, it's early in the process, but I think it's been a positive step.
I work the road sometimes when I get some free time, and just from working the road and seeing people's interactions with our officers, they know that now we do have cameras, and they are more willing to engage with us because they know that the interaction is going to be recorded. And I have seen where they want to talk to us now because there's obviously a recording device there. That's what I've seen when I've worked the road, is they're not afraid to engage with us as much. But still, like the captain said, it's really too early to tell.
I think everybody's had the anecdotal experience where an officer's dealing with someone in the street, and the current body cameras, the kinds that we field, it's pretty obvious what it is, and looking right at them, suddenly people get on their best behavior and oftentimes will want to get their side of the story out at that time. So that has a positive effect on the people we're dealing with. We've seen through consent decrees in other parts of the country where agencies would have body cameras forced upon them. And then you would see in some of those cases, officers acting like there was no camera on them, for sure. So I feel like it doesn't automatically create the change. If an officer is prone to take some kind of action, good or bad, I think he probably is prone to do it the same way with or without the camera. But for us, I do think it's been a positive thing because I think it's only been an extension of the in-car system they were so used to. And so officers are used to that all-seeing eye being there. And like we had said early on in this thing, we could elect not to have body-worn cameras, but you're going to be the only person there without your own personal video. Everybody else is recorded on the phone. And now you have no control over that and don't know whether it's going to get edited or turned into a funny meme or anything else. So if we want to have our side, we better be collecting it ourselves.
Excellent points. Well, before we close out, I want to make sure that everyone has a chance to say what they, things about the body-worn camera program that they might want to say. Is there any additional points anyone would like to mention?
I think for Tampa, I think we've covered it all, unless Chris or Sonia, if you got anything to add.
Yes, I just want to say that I'm very proud of the program that we have put forth. It's by no means absolutely perfect, but it has really become a great asset and a great tool for our department. And we're looking to expand in the future and to improve on it. So you'll be hearing from us, hopefully. And we're just going to continue to do the best that we can to provide the service to our community. Thank you.
I'd say that more times than not, when supervisors are watching video, it catches officers doing exactly what you want them to do rather than something negative. And I believe that goes a long way of getting the buy-in from the officers because it shows them doing the right thing.
All right. Well, thank you to all of our participants from Tampa and from Cookeville today. Thank you to the audience for the excellent questions. We hope you enjoyed the session, and we hope you enjoyed day one of our body-worn camera national meeting. I'm going to turn it over to Brittany now to close off.
Thanks everyone for attending. Really appreciated it. And thank you, Dr. Malm, for facilitating this session and all of our participants. We do have one closing session to close out the day that is back at the link that you used this morning. So thank you again. And we look forward to seeing you here in a second and then also tomorrow. So thank you very much.